And the cool thing is it functions in science, right? So bioenergetics is something that's been documented since the 1950s by Dr. Alexander Lowen. If you're not doing well physically, then mentally and emotionally, you're probably not doing so hot either. All of these incredible women that were incredible leaders.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. And this week we have yet again another amazing guest. Please help me welcome, wherever you are in the world, Kristine. Kristine, thanks for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. So I always like to start off the episode by letting the guests tell us a little bit about who they are to our audience. So in your own words, who are you? What do you do? What are you jazzed about today?
Well, my full name is Kristine Genovese, so sometimes I'm called the spiritual gangster because of my last name. I do come by that honestly. My great-great-uncle Vito was the Uncle Vito in New York City. So what do? I basically have a bioenergetic method that helps people heal. When everybody and everything is energy, what gets trapped in the body is emotion. And emotion is supposed to be energy in motion. And when it pools in the body, that's when it causes dis-ease, dysfunction, or dissonance in your frequency. And typically you got to go to a doctor. So what my method does is figure out what's the underlying emotional root cause to what's going wrong in the physical body. And so I also have the opportunity to be the chief growth officer for a nutritional products company called Nutritional Frontiers. And we actually focus on providing high quality, patented research trademarked ingredients in our supplements to healthcare providers so that people can get the best quality supplements to heal in the physical. So once we get the energy up and out of the body, then we can give the body what it needs to heal, because our bodies are amazing healing machines.
Okay, this is really interesting, and I want to dive into this. But first, tell us a little bit about how you got here. Like, what got you into, the energy in motion? I love how you said that emotions is energy in motion, into the healing, into the space that you're in today.
Gosh, what got me here? Well, the actual moment was probably the ultimate COVID timeout. When the world came to a screeching halt. Most of my career, I'd been a corporate revenue and turnaround specialist. So figuring out what people, processes, or technologies needed to move or shift so the business could achieve its objective. And I was on my last corporate turnaround, which I thought was going to be my swan song, which it was not. And the divine literally plucked me out of corporate America, March 12th of 2020. So I was really given a 9-month runway to figure out, what do I really want to do with my life? And I always knew deep down inside that I had this ability to be able to shift energy. And I had learned a method years before called spiritual response therapy, which was developed by a Baptist minister out west who's since passed. And it was just very rigid, but I had the understanding of how to use a book of charts and a pendulum. And so through, that reflective time period, I spent a lot of time in prayer and meditation. And I really feel like, through one of those meditations, I was told, look, you've been operating in your zone of excellence for so long. And that's how Brandon Bouchard talks about, you're so good at it and you define yourself by it and people identify you with it and you make great money. And so that's what you should always do. And at some point you just, it's not enough and you need to step into your zone of genius. And that's really when the soul intelligence method was, given to me or downloaded to me, or, kind of how somebody writes a book, it's inspired instruction to put this method together. And the cool thing is it functions in science, right? So bioenergetics is something that's been documented since the 1950s by Dr. Alexander Lowen. And being a native New Yorker, it's kind of common sense law to me, which essentially says, if you're not doing well physically, then mentally and emotionally, you're probably not doing so hot either, right? And if you think about it, you go to the doctor, they're not just asking you, what's physically going wrong. They're asking you what's going on at home, what's going on at work, how are things with your kids, because they're looking for all of those lifestyle factors that are contributing to the state that you're in, whether that's stress is probably the biggest one, or toxicity, or poor nutrition, or, lack of movement, sleep, all those things. Most of our health is actually within our own control.
Yeah. So how would you classify bioenergetics in like one or two sentences? Is that what you would say it is, like the connection between the emotional, mental, and physical aspects?
Yeah, it's the correlation between your mental, emotional, and physical well-being, right? And typically when one is out, more than one is out, if not all of them are out. And so what my method does is to help get you back into alignment. If you think about a chiropractor, right? You go to a chiropractor for a biomechanical adjustment to straighten the spine, to unpinch the nerves, to get the muscles to relax so that you're back in alignment and the energy can flow through your body. You come to me for a bioenergetic adjustment where I work in the emotional body, the mental body, and the physical body. And I'm able to shift the energy up and out from wherever it's stuck.
How would you differentiate that from Reiki?
Sure. Yeah. So Reiki's a general transfer of energy, right?
Okay.
And it's just sometimes people will feel that energy coming through them. My method is very specific. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where it is, what's stuck, what caused it. So whether it's a toxic emotion, if it's an old trauma, if it's a stuck pattern, a repetitive pattern or archetype or self-limiting belief, all of that stuff is stuck in the subconscious mind. So even though maybe you've gone to therapy and you swear you've worked through this issue, right? You live over and over and over again. Our body or our cells typically holds that energy. And people are like, well, how is that possible? I know I've worked through it. Well, the issue is that the body, the cells are still holding on to some of the trapped energy, which is why you're still not healing completely. And most of the time when somebody goes to a doctor today, it's for a chronic condition, something that just won't heal. And that's because you got to get to the underlying root cause. So all of that stuff is stored in our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is running the show like 95% of the time, which is good, or we wouldn't breathe while we're sleeping. But it's like, if it's in the subconscious, below conscious, how do I know what it is? And how do I find it? And that's what my method does.
Where do you see in most cases it typically starts? Like, is it usually an emotional thing that then manifests into the physical? Would you say it starts mentally? Like, where I'm assuming, but I'm not an expert in this, that the last symptom is the physical side. So when things are happening,
absolutely.
You
Yeah, you got it, sister. You know, it is typically by the time it manifests in the physical, it's been there a while. Now, it can also be a subtle message, right? Maybe you woke up and you had like a kink on the right side of your neck. And you're like, oh, I must have slept wrong. Well, if you really kind of take a moment and you think about, okay, the right side of the body is male, necks are about flexibility. It could be maybe you're being inflexible with your partner, or maybe your partner is literally being a pain in your neck. Like, it could be something that subtle that you didn't want to deal with, to something more serious. You know, for example, with me, I had a cervical cancer scare at one point. And so, you know, growing up in corporate America, being a corporate executive, I really suppressed my femininity. Like, I acted like a man. I talked like a man. I was crass. I learned all the sports statistics because I grew up at a time where the glass ceiling really existed. I probably still have cuts on the top of my head. I always knew I had to do everything twice as hard, twice as well as any man to get paid the same. So I was really like always trying to suppress my femininity. And be one of the guys. And I thought that's the way I needed to operate in the world. So much so that the energy had to go somewhere, right? Because once energy is created, it can't be destroyed. That's a scientific fact. So it's going somewhere. Well, where it went was to the seat of womanhood, which was my cervix. So I went into the OBGYN, had my normal checkup, and she's like, oh, you have an abnormal pap smear. You need to come back in for an in-office procedure. So we did the in-office procedure, the copal, and they found that there were too many bad cells. So they said, we're going to have to schedule a conical biopsy where you have to go into the hospital and they're going to put you under and we're going to cut your cervix. And I was like, what? A biopsy of cancer? What? So that was probably the shock of a lifetime for me. But my body was trying to tell me, you can't suppress your femininity. You have to have balance, right? It's not all masculine or all feminine. So at that time, I didn't know what the heck to think. I went to every healer I knew, every other doctor. I went to an energetic acupuncturist. I went to a massage therapist. I went to a psychic. I went to every kind of healer I could think of. And the first person I talked to said, well, you're not in touch with your divine feminine. And at the time, I didn't even know what the heck that meant, right? I was like, what do you mean? Like, now we kind of get it, but we didn't then. And so I started studying, you know, strong women, leaders, goddesses, and religious figures, and all kinds of really strong women from, you know, ancient Egypt, like Sekhmet and Hathor, to Margaret Thatcher, you know, other historical figures, Joan of Arc, like all of these incredible women that were incredible leaders. Because I realized I had a warped view. I always thought being a woman meant being weak. And I didn't realize at the time how strong women were. So I started to do that. Then I went to someone else and they said, by the time you go in for that procedure, it's going to be gone. I went, you know what, you're right. And so I started to talk to my body and talk to my cells and just said, you're healed. You're vibrating healthy. I got the message. I'm totally in touch with my divine feminine, right? I understand balance between the two. And I really started to see myself as healthy.
Did you know that 95% of leaders think they're self-aware, but only 10% actually are? So let me ask you, do you know where your two strengths and gaps are when it comes to the skills that matter most? Well, at riseupfree.com, we have built a number of free tools and resources to give you instant answers. Free tools around self-confidence, emotional intelligence, multiple quizzes that you can take right now to figure out where you stand today and how to get to where you want to go tomorrow. These aren't just quick checklists. These are actual tools that we've used around the world with our clients, both big organizations from Fortune 5 to entrepreneurs or individuals just like yourself. So head over to riseupfree.com. Don't waste any more time. Click on the free tab resources button up on the top and grab a hold of all of the free resources you can today. Quiz your self-confidence, quiz your emotional intelligence, and find out how you can be the best version, because the world needs you now more than ever.
Anyway, I went in for the conical biopsy, and I will never forget the look on my OBGYN's face when she came out. I had the procedure and she said, we must have cut it all out because it's gone. I'm like, yeah, we must have. So what was it? Did we do it in the physical? Did we do it in the mental? Did we do it in the emotional, the energetic? My answer is yes. It all works together. It's holistic, right? We have to heal each other on multiple, or heal ourselves on multiple levels in order to heal completely.
And how do we know if it's a bioenergetic thing? Like, how do we know that it's not just, like you said, I slept wrong on my pillow, or, I have tech neck because I'm constantly on the computer. So I have like chronic pain in my shoulders. How do you know if it's attached to an energy thing versus a lifestyle thing of like posture and our day-to-day movements?
Well, I think one of the things that you have to do is to kind of notice when something happens and how long it's been there and what's going on and what have you done about it. And the issue is that everybody and everything is energy. And I think we forget that. If we go all the way back to elementary school, right? We're all protons, neutrons, electrons vibrating an electromagnetic field. We have electricity that runs through us. Most of our body is water. How do we get to see each other right now using this, internet technology and platform? It is energy and frequency that is interpreted by the computer or the phone. Same thing with music. It's energy and frequency. We take for granted that things just come to our phones and they just stream automatically. We're all made up of the same thing. We're all energy, we're all frequency, and we all have our own unique frequency. So regardless of why your frequency is out, right, or not in alignment, you have to correct that. So there are things you need to correct in the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the energetic. So it all works together. It's not one or the other, which is really my point.
Yeah. And so for those that are listening that might say like, yeah, I've had this chronic pain in my leg, or, one thing that I notice with people sometimes is that they constantly keep falling, right? Or they're tripping all over the place. And I'm like, there's something there emotionally or mentally where you keep attracting, falling or hurting yourself. And so for those that are listening, what would you say is one or two steps that they can start with from like a self-awareness perspective? Like, what do we need to do to become more conscious of what we could potentially be having inside?
Well, I think, it's kind of examining what it is. I gave you a couple of pointers, like the left side of the body is feminine, the right side's masculine. So that might give you a clue. Every organ in your body, every body system, every part has, things related to it from an emotional perspective. For example, you talked about somebody tripping. I had a doctor, because I work with healthcare providers and also their patients. And I had a doctor call me and she's like, I haven't been able to walk on my foot for 4 months. And I'm like, you're a doctor. What do you mean you haven't been able to walk on your foot for 4 months? What's going on? And she goes, I literally am not able to walk on it. And she also had like a congestion that wouldn't go away. And I'm like, you have all these things, all these tools at your disposal. How can this be happening? So I said, she goes, well, why do you think I'm calling you? I said, okay, because usually I'm last one on the Magical Mystery Tour, right? Well, I've tried everything else. Well, let me try this. So she called me. We did one session. I got a text from her. Well, I'll tell you about the session. So I said to her during the session, I said, wait a minute, what are all these men who are not supporting you? Like, what's going on? Like, it was like like a group. And she said to me, she goes, "Oh, I have been in a lawsuit with a contractor. They were supposed to do this work on my home. They did it incorrectly. They owe me money. I haven't been able to get it resolved. I can't even get my own attorney back on the phone." And I said, "Oh, you haven't been able to move forward. That makes complete sense as to why you can't put any weight on the right side, on your right foot." So it was the mail, the group, and that. So I worked on it during the session. We cleared it. I also cleared up the congestion, or focused on that, which is usually mental confusion, things like that. When it manifests into a sinus infection, then it's a little bit more pinpointed towards someone that you're close to, giving you a hard time. So I worked on it. The very next morning, she said, "Oh my God." She goes, "My foot was so bad, I literally had to crawl to the bathroom. Like, I couldn't put weight on it, and I couldn't use crutches anymore. I was just exhausted." She goes, "I was able to walk and I don't have the cold," because what we did is we brought that from the subconscious, where she wasn't aware of where it was coming from, to the conscious mind, and it was released. And then she was able to move forward. And I said, "Great. Now that you can put weight on your foot, the next move is I want you to pick up the phone and put that foot up the backside of your attorney and get him to settle this for you." And so she said that was her next call.
Wow, fascinating. I mean, I'm a firm believer in a lot of this stuff, because I, over the time, have seen how disease can create disease. Most of the people in our community know that I lost my parents at a younger age, both of them from disease. So one from cardiovascular disease. My father had 6 heart attacks, and another from cancer that kind of came out of nowhere. Was never a part of the family. And even till this day, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a firm believer that those diseases that my parents received and manifested, I believe a lot of it came from like mental stress, coming from a third world country, living in a time and in a culture where they had to suppress emotions. Like, especially my mom, I felt like she had to suppress her voice, and she ended up getting throat cancer. So just certain things like that, I've always believed that they are highly connected. I really appreciate this conversation. I think it's so important. I'm going to message you after the podcast.
Awesome.
There's a couple of things that I'm very in tune with my body, and there's a couple of things that, I go to the doctor and they're like, "You're amazing, and your x-rays, everything looks great," but I can feel that there's something stuck there. I'd be curious to kind of see what happens. I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview, but before I do that, is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel called to address or talk about?
No, I mean, really, just, I want people to remember that self-care is sacred. It's not selfish. When you decide to shift your energy, your frequency, get yourself well, you're not only going to affect the people that are around you, but because of quantum physics and the way energy works, when you take care of you, are actually having the ability to affect everyone and the collective. And I mean everyone, not just the people you know or you interact with. And the reason for that is, if you've ever heard of the butterfly effect, if a butterfly dramatically changes its trajectory, like flight pattern, on one side of the world, it can literally cause a tsunami on the other side of the world. And that's because we are all connected and we are all energy. But I think we forget that because we're physical, we're corporal, and we're vibrating so slowly, we appear physical and dense. But we have to remember that we're energetic beings. I mean, the coolest thing to me is that Einstein said the future of medicine is frequency. And the coolest thing to me that's happening today is that we're using frequency, electromagnetic pulse, to break the outer membrane walls of cancer cells. So we don't have to do chemo to kill the good cells and the bad cells with chemicals. We don't have to use radiation to burn the good cells and the bad cells out of our body. We can actually use frequency to break the outer membrane walls of cancer cells and shrink tumors. It's absolutely incredible. And I'm so happy that science and modern medicine are really catching up, and we're getting back to how do we heal the body naturally.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So I want to jump into the power section. First question is, if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. What would your golden nugget?
Oh gosh, I think I kind of just gave it to you. I was ahead of myself. I mean, truly, I would say, honestly, putting yourself first, making you a priority. We're told to love one another as we love oneself. And most of us are more focused on the other person than we are ourselves. So it's taking that time to put yourself first when it comes from, a place of love, and making sure that you're managing your mental, emotional, and physical wellness.
At this company, Rise Up For You, a lot of what we talk about, most of what we talk about is human behavior, soft skills. I call them the power skills. What's one power skill that you would say you got to have? Whether that's being resilient, self-confidence, what's the first one that comes to your mind that you think is so critical for people to embrace?
Growing up, I think we really focused on, our emotional intelligence, EQ. And what I hope people tap into today after listening to this podcast is their soul intelligence, being in alignment with who they truly are and feeling comfortable enough to be who they are, regardless of the environment, work, home, or play.
Yeah, I love that. One more question for you, but before I ask, where can we find you? Where can our audience get in touch with you? I know you have a best-selling book. You have a lot of great stuff going on, a movie that just came out. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Well, to find all things about Kristine Genovese, all you have to do is to go to thesoulintelligencemethod.com. That's my website, soulintelligencemethod.com. You can find out about my courses, how you could join a monthly group session where you could experience the work firsthand. My best-selling book is there, but it's also available on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. And I did record it myself in LA. It was really kind of fun. I've been told that several people have had a healing since hearing my book, which is super cool since I read it. Most recently, we just had the world premiere of the Pillars of Power movie, which is about living your best life in 5 key powers or pillars, which would be mental wellness, health, finances, relationships, and spirituality. And I'm featured in 3 out of the 5 pillars, which is pretty exciting. So it came out this year because it's a 20-year celebration of the movie, The Secret. And we have 4 of the original cast members from The Secret in the movie. So yesterday's pioneers in transformation, along with today's transformational specialists like myself.
And
so there's right now it's just premiering in select cities and AMC theaters, and it's going to be streaming on multiple streaming platforms, most of the major platforms, by the end of the year.
Beautiful. I love that. We'll definitely look out for that. And we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes. Kristine, thank you. Final question for you. As you know, we're the company Rise Up For You. And I feel like you kind of already answered this already. But what does that phrase Rise Up For You mean to you?
I really think it means about kind of a lot what I've been talking about, putting yourself first, taking care of you, making sure that you put your own mental, emotional, and physical well-being first before anyone else. And I think we have a tendency as humans, because we want to be in service to others, to give it out more than focusing on ourselves. And that can cause, issues related to like self-abandonment, making sure that if they're okay, you're okay. If they're not okay, you're not okay. So you kind of create unhealthy patterns and boundaries and codependency and craziness when you don't put yourself first. So that would be my recommendation.
I love that. Kristine, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast.
Thank you so much. That was a blast being here with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up For You podcast today. Yet again, another amazing, informative episode. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure that we see you on the next episode, bringing you another amazing guest to do one thing and one thing only, and that's help you become your absolute best. Thank you. We'll see you next week. And Kristine, thank you again.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. Every episode is designed to give you practical tools and strategies on success, entrepreneurship, leadership, and so much more. The skills that actually help you be seen, be heard, and be relevant. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and any podcast platform, your favorite, so that you can catch weekly episodes with the leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world. We're all coming together for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help you be the best that you can be. Click the subscribe button below and share this episode. I'll see you next time.